We are discussed the introductory part of earthworm. Now we are going to discuss the digestive system, the circulatory system and other important points regarding the systems of the Pheretima or earthworm. Now as we observe the digestive system, in the phylum Annelida, a complete alimentary canal is present. What is meant by complete alimentary canal? The alimentary canal has mouth and anus. If alimentary canal has mouth and anus, it is a complete alimentary canal. Now in the earthworm body, the length of alimentary canal is equal to that of the length of body wall. So the alimentary canal is straight. How? The alimentary canal is kept in its position. The alimentary canal is kept in its position by the septa. Now, in the phylum Annelida, associated with the alimentary canal, what are present? The digestive glands are present. If alimentary canal and digestive glands are present, that we call it as the complete digestive system. What is meant by complete digestive system? Alimentary canal and digestive glands. Such type of complete digestive system first developed in the phylum Annelida. Take for example Cnidaria. In the Cnidaria, only incomplete alimentary canal present, that is gastrovascular cavity. In the Platyhelminthes, in some examples complete alimentary canal, in some examples incomplete alimentary canal present, but no digestive glands. In the Nematoda also only complete alimentary canal, no digestive glands. From Annelida onwards, we have to observe the presence of digestive glands. Now we have to discuss some important points regarding the digestive system, circulatory system, etc. Now, what is the question? A chitinous lining in earthworm is found in. Again the question is repeating. A chitinous lining in earthworm is found in. Now this part we call it as the gizzard. This part we call it as gizzard. The gizzard is present in the 8th segment. Inside the gizzard, what is present? A chitinous cuticle is present. Because of the chitinous cuticle, the gizzard is hardest part. What is the hardest part in the alimentary canal? That is gizzard. In the gizzard, what type of muscles are present? The circular muscles. Now in the gizzard, what is going to observe? The grinding of food materials. Now here what is the question? What are responsible for the grinding of food materials? One answer is the muscles. The muscles help in the grinding of food materials. The second one is the sand grains also help in the grinding of food materials. So what is the hardest part? Gizzard. Why it is hardest? It is lined inside by chitinous cuticle. Here what function is going on? Grinding. What are responsible for the grinding? One is muscles, the second one is sand grains. Now here what is the answer is? The third answer, that we call it as gizzard. Now move for the next question. Now as we observe the second question, the enzyme secreted by intestinal CK. Now this is 26th segment, this is 25, this is 24 and this is 23rd segment. In the 26th segment, what are present? The intestinal CK. How they are arranged? They are arranged laterally. They are called lateral outgrowths. The intestinal CK, these are called intestinal CK. The intestinal CK secretes what type of enzyme? Amylase. The amylase is responsible for the digestion of starch. The starch is an example of polysaccharide. Now you observe the question. The enzyme secreted by intestinal CK, invertase, it is also called sucrase, eliminated. Second one protease, or proteolytic enzyme eliminated. Third one, lipase or lipolytic enzyme eliminated. What is the last option? That we call it as lipase. Now the answer is the fourth one. Now move for the next question. The intersegmental septum is absent between the segments. Now, as we observe the body of earthworm or Pheretima, this is first segment, second segment, third segment, fourth segment, fifth segment, this is the ninth segment, this is the 10th segment, and this is the last segment that we call it as the anal segment. Now, beyond the anal segment, beyond anal segment, what is absent? The septum absent. Now in the brackets the into mark indicates beyond anal segment no septum. Now in the body of Pheretima already one septum absent. What are the remaining septa absent? Between first and second segment no septum. Between second and third no septum. Between third and fourth no septum. Between ninth and 10th segments no septum. So in the body of Pheretima, how many septa absent? 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last septum that we call it as fifth one. Total number of septa that are absent in the body of Pheretima, 5 septa. In the body of Pheretima, total number of segments 120. In the 120 we remove the 5. So it means in the body of Pheretima, total number of septa, that is 115. Here regarding the question, what are the options? 7 by 8, 8 by 9, 9 by 10, 10 by 11. Here where the septum absent between the 9th and 10th segment. Now the answer is third. Move for the next question. In Pheretima, from which septum minute, oval or circular, sphinctered pores are going to appear? Again we are going to observe. Now as we observe the body of Pheretima, now this is the 11th segment, 12th segment, 13th segment, 14th segment, 15th segment, and so on. What is the last segment? 120 segment. Now here what is the question is, in Pheretima, from which septum onwards we observe minute, oval or circular, sphincter pores are observed. This is the 14th segment, this is the 15th segment. Now this we call it as the septum. Now this septum is having either oval or circular septal pore. The septal pore is guarded by the sphincter muscle. Now from 14 by 15 onwards, each septum is having the septal pore. Now what is meant by typical septum? That is the first septum having the septal pore. Here what is the first typical septum? Between 4th and 15. From 14 by 15 onwards, all septa are typical septa. What is meant by typical septa? Each typical septum having septal pore. What is the first typical septum? Present between 14 and 15. Now you observe the options. 5 by 6, 10 by 11, 13 by 14, 14 by 15. Now what is the correct answer? 14 by 15. Now move for the next question. These coelomic cells of Pheretima show characteristic markings on their surface. Now as we observe the coelom of annelids, what is the coelom of annelids? A true coelom. What is meant by true coelom? Externally, internally covered by mesodermal epithelia. The coelom formed by splitting of mesoderm, schizocoelom. The coelom is filled with coelomic fluid. In the coelomic fluid, what type of cells are present? One we call it as phagocytes. They are also called amoebocytes. The second one we call it as the circular cells. And the third one we call it as chlorogogen cells. And the fourth one we call it as the mucus cells. Now, as we observe the phagocytes or amoebocytes, Now this is the phagocyte or amoebocyte. On its surface, what are present? The membranous folds are present. Now, what about the chlorogogen cells? The chlorogogen cells are the star-shaped cells. What about the circular cells? Their percent is 10%. On chlorogogen cells, what are present? The characteristic markings are present. Now, what about the next one, mucous cells? The mucous cells are elongated. Now, based on this information, we have to identify the correct answer. These coelomic cells of Pheretima show characteristic markings on their surface. Now, what is the correct answer for this question is? Now, phagocytes, they are also called amoebocytes having membranous folds. Yellow cells, they are called chlorogogen cells, they are star-shaped. What about the third? Circular cells, their percentage is 10%. On their body, characteristic markings are present. Now, the third option is correct. Now, move for the next question. Choose the correct statement. Now, the first one is, digestion in Pheretima is intercellular. Second one, lymph glands produce hemoglobin. Third one, intestinal CK secrete ptyalin enzyme. Fourth one, gizzard is lined by thick longitudinal muscle fibers. Now, already we got some information regarding this one. Now, before going to these statements, the first one is, this is alimentary canal. Now, from annelida onwards up to human being, what type of digestion? That is intercellular or extracellular. What is meant by intercellular? The digestion takes place outside cell and inside alimentary canal. Here, what is the asking statement? Choose the correct statement. In case of Pheretima, or from the phylum Annelida onwards up to human being, generally, what type of digestion? Inter or extracellular. What is meant by inter or extracellular? Digestion takes place outside the cell, inside alimentary canal. That is the correct statement. Now we have to discuss remaining three statements. Why they are wrong? Lymph glands produce hemoglobin. Lymph glands produce the phagocytes. The lymph glands are going to start from 26th segment onwards. What about the intestinal CK? They produce what type of enzyme? The amylase enzyme. Now, the fourth option, gizzard is lined by thick longitudinal muscles. No, the gizzard is lined by what type of muscles? The circular muscles. So that second, third, fourth are wrong. Only the first option is correct. Now, move for the next question. Choose the correct statement. Now, colon is also known as post-typhlosolar region. Here they are asking correct statement. Now, what is the first one? Colon is also known as post-typhlosolar region. Now, this is called the pre-typhlosolar region. And this one we call it as typhlosolar region. And this one we call it as the post-typhlosolar region. What is the other name of post-typhlosolar region? That is rectum. But here, what is the first statement? Colon is known as post-typhlosolar region. That is the wrong statement. Second, salivary chamber is the ventral chamber of pharynx. But as we observe the pharynx, now this is pharynx. In the pharynx, this is the dorsal chamber, this is ventral chamber. Now, the dorsal chamber is called the salivary chamber. The ventral chamber is called the conducting chamber. Now, what is the second statement? Salivary chamber is the ventral chamber. No, salivary chamber is the dorsal chamber of the pharynx. So, second statement is wrong. What about the third? the totipotent cells of earthworm are basal cells. No doubt, in the epidermis, one type of cells are called basal cells. They produce all kinds of cells. Hence, they are called formative cells or totipotent cells. That is the correct statement. What about the fourth one? The setae act as anchors on the smooth surface. No, the setae help only on rough surface. What type of structure helps on smooth surface? That is the mouth. Now, what is the correct answer for this question? That is the third option. Now, we go for the next question. Arrange the following parts in a sequence from anterior to posterior. Now, what is the question? Arrange the following parts in a sequence from anterior to posterior. Now, this part we call it as mouth. The mouth opens into buccal cavity. Buccal cavity opens into pharynx. That one opens into esophagus. That opens into gizzard. The gizzard opens into stomach. It opens into pre-typhlosolar region. That opens into the typhlosolar region. That opens into post-typhlosolar region. And it opens out through anus. Here, what is the question? Arrange the parts from anterior to posterior. Now, what are the options? One is pharynx. Second one, esophagus. Third one, gizzard. And the fourth one is the stomach. Now, anterior to posterior. This one we call it as the pharynx, followed by esophagus, followed by gizzard, followed by stomach. Now, what is the correct answer for this question is? Answer 1. Pharynx, esophagus, gizzard and stomach. Now, move for the next question. Assertion. The body wall of earthworm is dermomuscular. Now, as we observe the body wall of earthworm, the first part we call it as cuticle. That is the short word. Now, the cuticle is followed by epidermis. The epidermis is followed by dermis. The dermis is made by connective tissue. What is the meaning of CT? Connective tissue. Attached to the dermis, what are present? The first one is circular muscles. The circular muscles followed by what type of muscles? The longitudinal muscles. Now, we have to observe the assertion. The body wall of earthworm is dermomuscular because in the body wall what is present? The dermis. Attached to the dermis what are present? Muscles. So, no doubt it is dermomuscular. Due to the presence of muscles, the body wall is thick, no doubt. Now, the assertion is correct. What is the reason? It is made by dermis and thick circular and longitudinal musculature. Now, attached to the dermis, what are present? The circular muscles and longitudinal muscles. So, A and R are correct. R explains A. So, what is the correct answer for this question is the first option. Now, move for the next question. Assertion. Yellow cells are derived from ectoderm. Now, this is YC. What is meant by YC? Yellow cells. The yellow cells are called the chlorogogen cells, we know very well. Now, as we observe the alimentary canal, this is alimentary canal. Externally, the alimentary canal is covered and protected by the visceral layer. Now you have to listen. Above alimentary canal, what is the external covering? Visceral layer. What is the other name of visceral layer? Inner mesodermal layer or inner coelomic epithelial layer or splanchnic layer. This visceral layer is derived from what type of germ layer? The mesoderm. Now in the visceral layer, the star-shaped cells are present. Now they are called the yellow cells. They are also called chlorogogen cells. So the chlorogogen cells, no doubt, indirectly they are derived from what type of germ layer? Mesoderm. But here what is the assertion? Yellow cells are derived from ectoderm. So the assertion is wrong. Now we observe the reason. Ileocytes are chlorogogen cells loaded with the nitrogenous waste materials. Now these are the chlorogogen cells. The chlorogogen cells collect nitrogenous waste materials. After collecting the nitrogenous waste materials, the chlorogogen cells fall into the coelom. Now again it is repeated. The chlorogogen cells, after collecting the nitrogenous waste materials, they fall into coelom. Now in the coelom, the chlorogogen cells are freely move. Such freely movable chlorogogen cells are called ileocytes. Now we are getting one doubt. What is the difference between chlorogogen cells and ileocytes? Chlorogogen cells do not move, they are stationary. After collecting nitrogenous waste materials, they fall into coelom. Now in the coelom, they are freely movable. The freely movable chlorogogen cells are called ileocytes. In the ileocytes, what is present in the nitrogenous waste materials? Now observe the reason. Ileocytes are chlorogogen cells, no doubt. They are loaded with nitrogenous waste material. So assertion is wrong, but the reason is correct. The correct answer is fourth. A is false, R is true. Now move for the next question. The part of alimentary canal in the Pheretima that is divided into salivary chamber and conducting chambers. Now as we observe the pharynx, this part we call it as pharynx. Now this is called the pharynx. Now this is the cavity of pharynx called pharyngeal cavity. Now these are the lateral sides of pharynx. Now the lateral sides of pharynx will undergo invagination. The lateral sides of pharynx undergo invagination. So the pharyngeal cavity divides into, this is the dorsal chamber and ventral chamber. The dorsal chamber is called salivary chamber and ventral chamber is called conducting chamber. Here the digestion takes place. Here no digestion. In the salivary chamber, what type of enzymes are present? The proteolytic enzymes. Now in the salivary chamber, the food materials mixed with saliva, F means food materials, they are mixed with saliva, we are getting a soft food material, that we call it as bolus. Now the bolus formation takes place in the dorsal salivary chamber. So which part of alimentary canal divides into salivary and conducting chamber? That we call it as the pharynx. Now what is the answer for this question is the pharynx. Now next question. In the earthworm, mechanical digestion occurs in this part of alimentary canal. Now as we observe the alimentary canal, this part is mouth and this part is buccal cavity. This is pharynx, this is esophagus and this part is called the gizzard. Now in the mouth, no digestion. The into mark indicates in the mouth no digestion because no enzymes. What about the buccal cavity? No digestion because enzymes absent. Now as we observe the pharynx, in the pharynx one is salivary chamber, one is conducting chamber. In the salivary chamber, proteolytic enzymes present, so here digestion present. But here the food materials mixed with the saliva, that is called the bolus. Now in the esophagus, no digestion because enzymes absent. Now in the gizzard, what type of digestion takes place? Mechanical digestion. Here the mechanical digestion is technically called the grinding. Now this grinding is brought by, one is the muscles. What type of muscles? The circular muscles. And the second one we call it as the sand grains. Now what is the answer for this question? In earthworm, mechanical digestion occurs in this part of alimentary canal. The correct answer is the gizzard. Now move for the next question. In Pheretima, a pair of intestinal caecae arise from intestine in this segment. We already got information regarding this question. Now in the body of earthworm, segment from which intestinal caecae arises? 26. Now from the 26th segment, they extend up to either 24 or 23rd. Now, what is the correct answer is the fourth option, that is 26th segment. Now, move for the next question. The intestinal digestive juice of earthworm is comparable to that of, one is saliva of vertebrates, second one succus entericus of vertebrates, third one pancreatic juice of vertebrates. Now fourth one is the bile juice of vertebrates. Again we have to observe the question. The intestinal juice of earthworm is comparable to that of. Now this part we call it as intestine. Now the intestine is lined inside by, the intestine is lined inside by endodermal gland cells. Endodermal gland cells. You have to observe carefully. The intestine is lined inside by endodermal gland cells. The endodermal gland cells are called intestinal glands. Intestinal glands. Now, the intestinal glands secrete the intestinal juice. Now, in the intestinal juice, what are present? One enzyme we call it as lipase. What is the second enzyme? We call it as the amylase. What is the third enzyme? We call it as the protease. Now, as we observe the protease, here the protease is also called the trypsin. The protease is also called the trypsin. Now, here what is the question? Intestinal juice of earthworm comparable to that of saliva of vertebrates, succus entericus of vertebrates, third pancreatic juice of vertebrates. Here in the body of earthworm, the intestinal juice as protease. That protease we call it as trypsin. Now, in case of vertebrates, as we observe the pancreatic juice, in the pancreatic juice, what is present? The trypsin is present. So, the intestinal juice compared to that of what type of digestive juice of vertebrates? That is the pancreatic juice. Now, what is the correct answer for this question? That is the third one, the pancreatic juice of vertebrates. Now, we move for the next question. Blood from the prostate glands of Pheretima. Now, as we observe the body of Pheretima, now this is the first segment, 14th segment, and this is the last segment. Regarding the circulatory system, as we observe the prostate glands, where prostate glands are present. Now, as we observe the male reproductive system, in the male reproductive system, what are present? The prostate glands are present. Now, what are the glands associated with male reproductive system? Prostate glands. Where prostate glands are present? From 16th to 20th segment, or from 17th to 21st segment. It means the prostate glands are present beyond 14th segment. Now, as we observe the circulatory system of Pheretima or earthworm, now what is the question? Blood from the prostate glands of Pheretima is collected by, from 14th to last segment, what are present? The transversely arranged blood vessels are present. These are called the commensural blood vessels. These are called the commensural blood vessels. The commensural blood vessels are going to start from 14 to the last. How they are arranged? Transversely. They are called collecting and distributing blood vessels. But here, prostate glands are present beyond 14th segment. That means from 16th to 20th or 17th to 21 segments. Now, based on this information, prostate glands, part of reproductive system, from 14th to the last segment, from the reproductive organs, The blood is collected by what type of blood vessels? The commensural blood vessels. Now you have to observe the options. One is septoprostatic vessels. Second one, commensural. Third one, septointestinal. Fourth one, subneural. What is the correct answer? That is the commensural vessels. Now move for the next question. Match the following and choose the correct option. Now group A, one is lateral hearts, second one ring vessels, third one commensural vessels, and the fourth one is supraesophageal vessels. Now as we observe the circulatory system, now this one we call it as the lateral hearts, this one we call it as lateral esophageal hearts. In the body of Pheretima, as we observe the hearts, they are classified into lateral hearts and lateral esophageal hearts. Segments in which lateral hearts present 7th and 9th. What about the lateral esophageal hearts? 12th and 13th. Now, in the 7th segment, one pair of lateral hearts. In the 9th segment, one pair of lateral hearts. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in each lateral heart, how many valves are present? The 4 pairs of valves are present. In each lateral heart, how many valves are present? 4 pairs of valves are present. 4 pairs of valves. 4 pairs of valves are present. That is 8, 8, 8, 8. 4 into 8. How many valves are present? 32. Now, what about the lateral esophageal hearts? In the 12th segment, one pair. In the 13th segment, one pair. In each lateral esophageal heart, how many valves are present? 3 pairs of valves. 6, 6. Here, 3 pairs of valves. 6. Here, 3 pairs of valves. 6. 6 into 6, 6 plus 6, 12. 6 plus 6, 12. Total number of valves in the lateral esophageal hearts, 24. 24 plus 32, 56. Also called 28 pairs. Number of valves in the lateral hearts is 32. Number of valves in the lateral esophageal hearts, 24. Total number of valves, 56 or 28 pairs. Now, what is the second one? Ring vessels. They are also called circular vessels. 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. In each segment, the ring vessels are present. In each segment, ring vessels are present. Now, in the 10th segment, 12. In the 11th, 12. In the 12th, 12. In the 13th, 12. Total number of ring vessels, 4 into 12, 48 ring vessels. The ring vessels are circular vessels present from 10th to 13th. Now, what about the commensural vessels? The commensural vessels present from 14 to the last. In each segment, one pair of commensural blood vessels are present. From 14 to the last, the commensural blood vessels are called collecting and distributing blood vessels. How they are arranged? They are arranged transversely. Now, what about the supraesophageal blood vessel? Now, this part we call it as the stomach. On the dorsal side of stomach, from 9th to 13th segment, what is present? The smallest longitudinal blood vessel is present. That is called supraesophageal blood vessel. In the body of earthworm, what is the smallest longitudinal blood vessel? Supraesophageal blood vessel. Where it is? From 9th to 13th. Now, you observe based on this information group B. 10th to 13th segment, 7th to 19th segment, 9th to 13th segment, 14th to the last segment, 15th to the 16th segment. Now, where the lateral hearts are present, 7th and 9th segments. What about the ring vessels, 10th to 13th segment? What about the commensural blood vessels, 14th to the last segment? What about the supraesophageal blood vessel, 9th to 13th? Now, what is the correct answer? Third. Now, we go for the next question. 4 pairs of valves are present in. Now, as we observe the lateral hearts, number of lateral hearts, 2 pairs. One pair present in the 7th segment, one pair present in the 9th segment. In the 7th segment, one pair of lateral hearts. In the ninth segment, one pair of lateral hearts. In each lateral heart, how many valves? 4 pairs. That is 8. Here 8, 8, 8. 4 into 8, 32 valves. How many valves in the lateral hearts? 32. In each lateral heart, how many pairs? 4 pairs. That means 8. Now based on this information, 4 pairs of valves are present in the one is lateral hearts, second one lateral esophageal hearts. In each lateral esophageal heart, how many valves are present? 3 pairs. Now what is the correct answer for this question? That is the lateral hearts. Now what about the anterior loops? No valves. What about the ring vessels? No valves. Now we move for the next question. The segment in which anterior loops are present. Now the segment in which anterior loops are present. Now these are called the lateral esophageal hearts. You have to observe the diagram. These are called lateral esophageal blood vessels. Now these are called lateral esophageal blood vessels. Now this one we call it as the supraesophageal blood vessel. Now again, these are lateral esophageal blood vessel 1 to 13 segments. What about the supraesophageal blood vessel? 9 to 13. Now the lateral esophageal blood vessels open into supraesophageal blood vessel. Now I am indicating with the help of the arrow marks. The lateral esophageal blood vessels open into supraesophageal blood vessels with the help of the anterior loops and with the help of the ring vessels. Where ring vessels are present? 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th. What about the anterior loops? They are present in the 10th and 11th segment. How many anterior loops? 2 pairs. How many ring vessels? Total ring vessels? 48. In each segment, how many are present? The 12 ring vessels. Now, what is the answer? The segments in which anterior loops are present? 10th segment and 11th segment. Now, what is the answer for this question? The 4th option. Now, move for the next question. Choose the false statement. Choose the false statement. Now, the first one is subneural blood vessel is present in the first 13 segments. Second option, in the 10th segment, 12 ring vessels are present. Now, anterior loops are not pulsatile. Now, fourth option, in the subneural blood vessel, blood flows from anterior to posterior. Now, regarding this question, you have to observe. Now, this is the body of earthworm. This is first segment, 14th segment and last segment. Now, in the first 13 segments, what is present? The lateral esophageal blood vessels are present. The lateral esophageal blood vessels unite in the 14th segment. Now, they continue as the subneural blood vessel. Now, this is called the subneural blood vessel. Now, you have to observe the subneural blood vessel is going to start from 14 to the last. Now, it is a longitudinal blood vessel. The subneural blood vessel present from 14 to the last, but absent in the first 13 segments. In the subneural blood vessel, the blood flows from anterior to posterior. Now, observe the first statement. Subneural blood vessel is present in the first 13 segment. In the first 13 segment, there is no subneural blood vessel. So, this is the false statement. What about the second one? In the 10th segment, in the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, in each segment, how many ring vessels or circular vessels? 12. So, second one correct. Third, anterior loops are not pulsatile. That means they are not contractile. That is the meaning of they are not pulsatile. Where they are present? In the 10th and 11th segment. Now, what about the fourth one? In the subneural blood vessel, the blood flows from anterior to posterior. So, second, third, fourth correct. What is the wrong statement? That is the first one. So, the answer is 1. Now, we move for the next question. Again, choose the false statement. First, we have to read the statements. The lateral esophageal hearts are in the 7th and 9th segment. Now we know very well this is the 7th segment, 9th segment. In the 7th segment, one pair of lateral hearts. In the 9th segment, one pair of lateral hearts. Now LH means lateral hearts. Now the lateral esophageal hearts are in the 7th and 9th segment. But in the 7th and 9th segment, what are present? Lateral hearts. Now what about the lateral esophageal hearts? Lateral esophageal hearts present in 12th and 13th. In the 12th segment, one pair of lateral esophageal hearts. In the 13th segment, one pair of lateral esophageal hearts. Now, what is the first statement? Lateral esophageal hearts are in the 7th and 9th segment. But that is the wrong, because they are present in the 12th and 13th. In the 7th and 9th, what are present? The lateral hearts. So, the first statement is wrong. Now, we move for the second statement. Ring vessels. They are also called circular vessels, where they are present 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. So, second one is correct. Third, dorsal blood vessel is valvular. The dorsal blood vessel, this is DBV, dorsal blood vessel. It is going to start from third to last. In the dorsal blood vessel, in each segment, what are present? Valves are present. So, it is valvular longitudinal blood vessel. Now, the third statement also correct. What about the fourth? Rectum is post-typhlosolar region. We know very well, in the last 23 or 25 segments, what is present? Post-typhlosolar region. Here, no typhlosole. It is also called rectum. Opens out through anus. Now, based on this information, what is the false statement? That is the first one. The answer is first. Now, move for the next question. Now, a chitinous lining in the body of alimentary canal. Already we discussed this question. That we call it as gizzard. In the gizzard, what is present? A chitinous cuticle is present. So the chitinous lining is present in gizzard. Now we discuss one more interesting question. Kinds of pores in the clitellar segments. Now what are the clitellar segments? You have to observe 14th segment, 15th segment and 16th segment. Now this is 13th segment and this is 12th segment. Between 12th and 13th segment, what is present? This one we call it as dorsal pore. Now this is clitellar segments. Again, between 13 and 14, what is present? The dorsal pore. Now in the clitellar segment, this is the clitellar segment, this is the clitellar segment. Now this is dorsal side of the body. Now you observe, these are the clitellar segments. Now this is the 7th segment. Now again, between 16 and 17th segment, what is the present? Dorsal pore. Now again, the dorsal pores are continued. Now as we observe the clitellar part, what are the clitellar segments? 14, 15, 16. Now on the dorsal side of clitellar segments, no openings. You have to observe the diagram. On the dorsal side of clitellar segments, what are absent? No pores. Totally pores are absent. Now we move for the ventral side of clitellar segments. Ventral side of clitellar segments. 14 segment, 15 segment and 16 segment. Now on the ventral side of 14th segment, what is present? The female genital pore. Female genital pore. Now in addition to female genital pore, what are present? The nephridiopores. Now as we observe the 15th segment, again nephridiopores. On the 16th segment, what are present? The nephridiopores. Here what is the question? Kinds of pores. Kinds means types. Kinds of pores present in the clitellar segments. On the dorsal side of clitellar segments, no pores. Remove it. Now observe the ventral side. On the ventral side of clitellar segments, how many kinds of pores are present? One we call it as female genital pore and the second one we call it as nephridiopores. How many kinds of pores in the clitellar segments? Only 2 kinds. Now you observe the options. First option, second, third and the fourth. How many kinds of pores in the clitellar segments? Only 2. That is female genital pore. This is unpaired, only 1 present on the ventral side of 14th segment. On the ventral side of 14th, 15th, 16th segment, what are also present? Nephridiopores. But on the dorsal side of clitellar segments, you have to observe no pores. So, how many kinds of pores? Only 2 kinds. Now, the students, we have to discuss the remaining topics in the next class. Excretory system, development and cockroach up to the locomotion we have to discuss in the next class.